Hello and welcome to a new session of Physics by Cloud Tutors powered by Connecting the Dots, a program to help grade 10 students to prepare for their board examinations. Today's topic is magnetic effect of electric current. So far we have completed two major chapters of physics section in your science syllabus, that is light and electricity. Both of them are very important from your examination point of view as well as your conceptual understanding point of view. I hope you've all have been benefited by these two chapters as well. Now, today's topic is magnetic effect of electric current, and this particular chapter is slightly smaller and easier than the previous two chapters, even though it has a lot of importance in terms of understanding and concept, and these concepts you will be using it in your further classes if one decides to take up science or one decides to study engineering or any applied sciences as well. Alright, so without further ado, let's get started with today's session. So this chapter holds a weightage of 4 to 7 marks, anywhere between 4 to 7 marks, and most of the 1 markers or short answer questions are usually based on your definitions and maybe simple understanding or reasoning based questions. Alright, so 2 marker questions are can be a combination of reasoning and also understanding. In this particular chapter, there are no major equations or circuit diagram based questions as you had seen it in our previous chapter, that is electricity, but it is fairly simpler when it comes to equations or numericals as such. In this particular chapter, one advantage is that it is only theory that you will study. There are no numericals in this. So any long answer questions which can be of 3 markers or 3 marks or 4 marks, or maybe a combined 2 and 3 marks which may be a 5 marker question, so that may be are based on your electric motor or electric generator or based on the concept of electromagnetic induction. Alright, so to begin with, let's just start with the important topics or that needs to be covered in this particular chapter. So first one is magnetic field. What do we mean by magnetic field? We need to understand, right? So before we getting into we get to understand what are the effects of magnetic effects of electric current, we need to know a fair amount of things about what do we mean by magnetic field, where do we get it from, so on and so forth, right? So in today's session, let's try and understand these basics and then move on to the magnetic effects of electric current. Alright, so I'm sure all of you would have seen a magnet. All of you would have been fascinated how it works and how it attracts certain objects, all of these things, right? And I know I have been, as a child, was fascinated how a magnet works. So when you pick up a magnet and you bring in another magnetic substance such as an iron nail or even a safety pin or another magnet, what happens? You see that it either attracts or it repels. So repelling happens only when you bring 2 magnets together, and attraction happens when you bring one magnetic substance such as an iron nail or a safety pin or anything that is made of iron or steel closer to a magnet, right? So how is this different, and why does magnet behave differently when you keep it near a magnetic substance like iron or steel, but it behaves slightly differently when it is kept near another magnet? Why is that? Because magnet as such has 2 parts, that is, it has 2 poles. One is a north pole, another is a south pole. So by the property of these poles, or by the property of the magnet itself, similar poles always repel each other, and unlike poles, that is, different poles attract each other. So in terms of theory, in terms of how do we put it across in the examination as a property of North Pole and South Pole, or magnetic poles as we call it together, like poles repel each other and unlike poles attract each other. So how does it happen? So as you would have already guessed by now, magnetic force sort of acts between two magnets or a magnetic substance and another magnet, right? So as you would have understood by now, the force that acts between these two objects cannot be actually seen. Definitely none of the forces can be seen. You can only see the effects as such. But here another important thing to note is that the force exists, even the magnetic force exists between two magnets or one magnetic substance and another magnet, even if you do not bring those two objects in contact with each other. Hence, magnetic force is a non-contact force. I'm sure all of you would have come across this during your 8th standard syllabus, right? You would have studied contact forces and non-contact forces. So contact forces are those wherein it is experienced only when you bring the object in contact with the another object or a person who's actually applying force, right? But here, in case of magnetic force or gravitational force or nuclear force, all of these forces basically act between two objects even though they are not in contact with each other. So magnetic force is one of non-contact forces. Now, magnetic force can be either force of attraction or force of repulsion, depending upon what are the different poles or what are the magnetic poles that are interacting. If there are we bring in the similar poles together or similar poles closer to each other, there will be a force of repulsion. If we bring in unlike poles or different poles together, there will be a force of attraction. So to simply put it together, we say like magnetic force repel each other and unlike magnetic force attract each other, right? As you can see here, when we bring in north and south pole, which are different, which are unlike to each other, they basically have magnetic force of attraction. The other way around, they have magnetic force of repulsion. All right. Another important thing that we have to understand here is every kind of magnet has two poles, that is north pole and south pole. So you may have a question like, what if I cut it in between? I cut the entire piece of magnet, what we call it as a bar magnet, into two pieces, two equal parts. What happens then? Each of these pieces will again have a north pole and a south pole. So what can we conclude by this? We can conclude that the two magnetic poles, that is north pole and the south pole, cannot be separated. They do not exist separately at all. They always exist in pairs. Alright, so please understand the fact that there is no separate north pole or there is no separate south pole in two separate magnets. There is always a pair of north and south pole in a given magnet, no matter how many pieces we break that magnet into. Alright, now that we have understood a little bit about magnets, we should understand the fact that there is some kind of surrounding around the magnet, basically the field around the magnet, in which or within which the magnet influences things like iron or any other objects which have magnetic properties. It basically attracts or repels. So if I have to notice the magnetic force between two magnets or a magnet and another magnetic substance, I'll have to bring them closer to a certain distance, right? Even though I do not have to bring them in contact with each other exactly, I need to bring them in the vicinity of each other. By vicinity, I mean a certain range of surrounding of each other, without which I won't be able to experience the magnetic force of attraction or repulsion between them. So this field of attraction or repulsion, where the magnet actually has some can exert magnetic force on other magnetic substances or another magnet, is called as magnetic field of that particular magnet. Alright, so what do we mean by magnetic field? The region around a magnet where the force of attraction or repulsion can be detected in, and that is called as the magnetic field of that given magnet. Alright, so magnetic field around a magnet can be detected by using magnetic compass. I'm sure all of you would have come across a magnetic compass. It is used to actually navigate, right? By navigation, I mean, to simply put across, it is to understand in which direction are we going. Now, why does the magnetic needle in the compass deflect? Why does it move from one point? Why does it point from one direction to another? But when you suspend a given magnet freely, it basically stands from north to south, or in the direction of north to south, right? When I say north to south, I'm talking about the north, east, west, and south direction of our surroundings, right? Why does that happen? Because Earth has a certain kind of magnetic field, and Earth actually acts as a giant bar magnet, and this is how it basically is. If this is the North Pole, geographic North Pole and geographic South Pole, Earth basically acts as a giant bar magnet, wherein the south pole of the magnetic field of the Earth exists at north geographic pole, and the vice versa, right? So whenever we suspend a bar magnet freely using a thread and hold it in this fashion, what happens? It basically deflects for a while and stands still, or comes to rest in the direction of north and south direction of the Earth's geographic field. Alright, so this is because Earth has its own magnetic field and acts as a giant bar magnet. Alright, so as you can see here in this figure, when we keep a few magnetic compass needles around the bar magnet at different places, you see that the deflection is kind of different. Why is that? Because at North Pole, you see that the red shaded area here is the North Pole, and non-shaded area is the South Pole of the bar magnet. It is just to indicate the North and South Pole and differentiate between it is easy to look at how this repulsion or attraction goes here, right? So in a magnetic compass needle, when it is placed along with the bar magnet, you see that it is actually repelling. What is actually repelling? Here there is a north pole of the bar magnet, and there is magnetic needle which also has a north pole, and those two are repelling, and what are attracted to each other? The unlike poles, which is the north pole of the bar magnet and the south pole of the magnetic needle. So as and when we move the magnetic compass around the bar magnet, you see that the direction actually changes, or the deflection of the magnetic compass needle goes on changing, right? So this is because, again, there is a magnetic force of attraction and repulsion acts into or comes into picture between these two magnets, and it basically moves around, correct? Alright, so magnetic field has both magnitude and direction. It's a very important point to remember, because when I say a particular quantity has both magnitude and direction, what kind of quantity is it? It is a vector quantity. So we have all studied scalars and vectors in 9th standard. A scalar is a quantity which has only magnitude. There is no need of direction to describe a quantity as such. For example, the time. If I say I spent 2 hours studying, I don't necessarily give any kind of direction. In fact, I cannot give it a direction, right? Such quantities are called as scalar quantities. Whereas there are other quantities which need, or there is a necessary of direction description when we actually define a certain quantity, such as force. When I say applied 10 Newton of force in force on a given object, you would first thing that you would ask me is in what direction, right? Because in order to tell you what kind of force did I apply and also how much is the force that did I apply, I also need to tell you, to show you the effect of force, I also need to tell you the direction, right? So if you stand in front of a table and if you apply 10 Newton of force, the table moves in a given direction. That direction is the direction of the force, right? If at all we do not have the direction to describe the force, it is not described properly. We cannot define it completely, right? Hence, force is a vector quantity. Similarly, magnetic field is a vector quantity which has both magnitude and direction. Alright, to understand this, let's look at a small video. As you can see here, when we place a bar magnet, we will look at the video in few seconds. When we place a bar magnet and if I sprinkle iron filings around it, they arrange themselves in a certain pattern. Why does that happen? Let's look at the video and come back and discuss it. Alright? Now, you see that we have taken a bar magnet here and we need to put the iron filings over the bar magnet, right? So when I pour the iron filings over the bar magnet, what is happening? You see that they are not randomly sprinkled onto the bar magnet, but there is a pattern to it. What is this pattern? You see that it gives us the direction of the magnetic field, and also you notice that around the poles of the bar magnet, what do you notice? The iron filings have stuck onto it more closely, as in more densely. Why does that happen? Because for a given bar magnet, what is happening here is, you see that the iron filings are stuck more closely to the north pole as well as the south pole. So what can we conclude using this experiment? We can conclude that one thing is that these lines or this pattern that you see show us the magnetic field around the bar magnet, and in the pattern in which the iron filings have arranged themselves are called as the magnetic field lines. Another thing is that since the iron filings have stuck so closely to the north pole and south pole, we can conclude that the magnetic field strength of a given magnet is the strongest at the poles and it is not so strong in between them. Is this clear? Alright. Now, what do you see here? You saw in the video as well, as in when we sprinkled the iron filings, what happened? They arranged themselves in a given certain given pattern. They were not randomly sprinkled over the bar magnet as such, but they arranged themselves in a pattern where you can see there are these lines going from north to south pole, and these lines are called as magnetic field lines. And also another thing to notice here is magnetic field strength is the strongest at the poles. That is exactly the reason why the iron filings have stuck so closely and densely to the north pole and south pole of the bar magnet. Alright. Now that we have looked at the video, let's move on and understand what are these magnetic field lines and also discuss the properties of magnetic field lines. So as we have said already, the line shows basically the magnetic field has both direction and magnitude, right? It's a vector quantity, and using the direction of using the experiment shown above, or that we saw it in the video, you can actually see that there is a particular direction to the magnetic field, and also it indicates the strength of the magnetic field, correct? So magnetic field lines indicate, they are very, very important, and they are the indicators of how strong the magnetic field around a given magnet is, and also from what direction it goes to what direction. As you can see here, a given magnetic field line goes always from north pole to the south pole, and it is strongest at the poles. So denser the number of magnetic lines at a given spot, higher is the magnetic field strength. Alright, so what can we conclude using this? We can conclude using this is that the lines, that is the magnetic field lines, show both the strength of the strength of the given magnet if the lines are denser, as in if they are very, very closer to each other and there are more lines around the magnet, it shows that the magnet is very, very strong and has a very strong magnetic field, and also it shows you the direction of a given magnetic field which goes from North Pole to South Pole. Alright, so there are different kinds of magnets that we use. Few commonly used magnets are a bar magnet, a horseshoe magnet. Horseshoe magnet is what it looks like what you see on the screen. It is kind of a U-shaped magnet which also has a North Pole and a South Pole. As you can see here, the direction of the magnetic field line is always from north to south. Alright. Now, what are major properties of magnetic field lines? First one is the magnetic field lines is what are they? We need to understand, right? So magnetic field lines are an imaginary curve, or is an imaginary curve along which a free unit North Pole tends to move. Next one, what is magnetic field lines are always starting from the North Pole. They begin at the North Pole and go towards the South Pole, as we have seen in the previous diagrams. Next one is that two magnetic field lines never intersect with each other. Now, why is that? Say for example, obviously in any of the given magnets, we do not actually see these lines unless we sprinkle the iron filings, right? Even if we sprinkle the iron filings, we do not necessarily know from what pole to what pole is it going, correct? So how do we determine the direction of the given magnetic field? So what happens the fact that a magnetic field line goes from one North Pole to a South Pole is definitely a given. But what is the direction of the magnetic field at a given point on the magnetic field line is determined using a tangent. Say for example, at this point of this magnetic field line, I need to determine the direction of the magnetic field. How do I do that? I draw a tangent here, correct? So when I draw a tangent, and we all know that you would have studied in your math portions also, at a given point on the curve, we can only draw one single tangent, right? So if that is the case, at every point I'll have to go on drawing a tangent, and by that we get the direction change in the magnetic field line, correct? So if this is the direction of the magnetic field line at every given point, we cannot have, or geometrically there is no possibility that two magnetic field lines can intersect with each other. Say if these are the two magnetic field lines that are intersecting, it cannot happen, but I'm just giving an example. Hypothetically, if these two are the magnetic field lines which are intersecting with each other, at this given point, this should be the direction of the magnetic field line for curve A, and this should be the direction of the magnetic field for curve B, which is absolutely not possible at all. Hence, the magnetic field lines have a property of not intersecting with each other. Alright, so this can be a 2-marker question or a reasoning based question where you may be asked why do you think, or give reason why two magnetic field lines can never intersect with each other. You need to explain it properly with all the keywords using this tangent concept. Alright. Now, moving on, we have Oersted experiments. Now, let me come to Oersted experiment in a while. But before that, let's just discuss how did we understand how a particular conductor can produce a magnetic field. Earlier on, in 16th century, all the humans, basically all the scientists and physicists, thought that magnetic field and electric field are two different entities, or two separate quantities or entities which exist separately. But Hans Richard Oersted, a Danish physicist, who conducted an experiment, or basically stumbled upon a concept or an effect where he saw that when a compass or a magnetic compass is kept beside a current carrying conductor, it basically showed a deflection. Now he wondered, why did that happen? right? As we all understand, if there is a magnet and there is a magnetic force of attraction or repulsion that needs to be existing between two objects, either both the objects have to be two magnets, or one has to be a magnet and another has to be a magnetic substance, right? Like iron filings or a safety pin or something that contains iron or steel. But he actually noticed that when he was passing the current, or he was conducting an experiment using a simple circuit using copper wire is definitely not magnetic in nature. So why is this compass needle deflecting when it was kept beside this circuit? He wondered. He kept on changing the direction of the current. He also conducted few experiments using the same setup by keeping the magnetic compass needle in different positions. It started deflecting even more and also started changing the direction or kind of deflection when he changed the direction of the current through the copper wire. By this, what he understood and concluded or discovered is that a current carrying conductor has a magnetic field around it, or creates a magnetic field around it. So with this, it was concluded, after many experiments and also much of discussion, it was concluded that any moving electric charge basically creates a magnetic field around it. What do we mean by moving electric charge? It is nothing but electric current, right? How do we define electric current? An electric current is the rate of flow of charges. By charges, we again only mean electrons. So if a moving electron is creating a magnetic field around it, definitely what happens, this magnetic field has an interaction with the another closer magnetic field that exists because of this deflecting needle, right? Magnetic compass needle. So to understand and see, let's look at this small and simple experiment. If you have a copper wire and if you have two cells with you, and also if you own a compass needle, I'm sure it's a very fascinating object to keep with. So if you have these three things, you can conduct this experiment. All you need is a cell, which is the source of, you need to create a potential difference, and hence there is a current that flows through the copper wire, and the magnetic compass needle. These three things, what are those? The cell, the copper wire, and the magnetic compass needle. With these three things, you can actually conduct Oester's experiment. Alright, so let's look at this small experiment and come back and discuss more on this. So as you can see here, we have a simple setup. We are here to demonstrate the magnetic effect of electric current. So for this experiment, we need a magnetic compass. That is the compass needle, which basically is resting in north and south direction, right? And we need a battery, and there is a copper coil. It is basically to demonstrate the magnetic effect of electric current, for which we need a proper conductor, right? It is a very simple setup. It is just a copper wire which is wound in the form of a coil, right? And I have a battery here. So battery, that too is a 2A batteries which are just connected in series here. All right. Now, so this particular concept was first discovered and demonstrated by Hans Richard Oersted. Right, so this experimental setup is also called as one of the Oester's experiments. Alright, so let's see what happens when I complete the connection, that is when I pass current through this coil, and if there is any effect on the magnetic compass that I have it here. So let's see what happens. So when I bring the coil near this magnetic compass, as you can see, there is a deviation, right? So earlier there was no deviation as such, correct? It was resting in the north and south direction, but when I bring the coil towards the magnetic compass, as you can see, it is basically getting deflected wherever I take the coil, correct? So what does it show? What does it demonstrate? It shows us whenever there is an electric current flowing through a conductor, whenever there are electric charges or electrons flowing through a given conductor, there is a magnetic field that is induced around it. This is basically the magnetic effect of electric current. So why does this magnetic needle is getting deflected? Why is it happening? Because there should be another magnet which is present in its vicinity, correct? So how are we getting another magnetic field? It is due to the magnetic effect of electric current. That is, when I complete this circuit, I'm basically making the electrons flow through this conductor, and this conductor turns into an electromagnet. As you can see, again there is a magnetic field induced around this conductor, and hence it is making the magnetic compass needle deflect in all possible directions. Wherever I'm moving, it is getting deflected, right? So this simple setup demonstrates magnetic effect of electric current. Now, you saw that what happened to the magnetic compass. You saw that it showed deflections as in when we moved around it around the circuit, right? And when we reverse the direction of the current, the deflection also reversed. What does it tell us? It tells us as in when we move the compass around, the deflection actually changed, and also when we reverse the direction of the current, the direction of the magnetic field also changed, correct? So in order to understand the direction of the magnetic field and more on how is this magnetic field created around a conductor, we need to discuss these questions. What are those? Definitely, as we already discussed, a copper wire is definitely not magnetic, right? But what happens when we pass the current through the copper wire? It basically, there is a magnetic field created around the copper wire. Why is it called an electromagnet? We will discuss that in a while, but let's see how does it work and what is the direction of the magnetic field around this current carrying conductor. Now, if at all, let's assume this is the copper wire I'm using. Of course, this is not a copper wire. There is a pen here. If this is the copper wire I'm using, how will I determine the magnetic field created or induced around the copper wire when the electric charge is moved in the copper wire? Is using Maxwell's right hand thumb rule. What does it state? It states that if at all you hold a straight current carrying conductor in your hand, right hand like this, and your outstretched thumb shows the direction of the electric current. Say for example, this is the direction of the electric current and my outstretched thumb is showing the direction of the electric current. My 4 curling fingers around the conductor. Remember, this is the copper wire we are talking about. This is not the pen here. It is the copper wire, and I'm holding it in my right hand, and there is an outstretched thumb which is showing the direction of the electric current. Then the direction of the magnetic field induced around this copper wire or current carrying conductor is given by my curling fingers. So what is the pattern of the magnetic field induced around this straight current carrying conductor? As you can see it in the picture, it is in the form of concentric circles. Alright. So the strength of the magnetic field induced around a straight current carrying conductor depends on two things. One, the direction of the electric current, and another is at what point are we measuring the magnetic field. As in when we move away from the conductor carrying the current, the strength of the magnetic field around that current also basically decreases. It's quite natural, right? It is like standing or going away from a sound source and thinking about the loudness. As in when we move away from the sound source, the loudness basically decreases, right? It is very similar to that. So what happens when I reverse the direction of the electric current? So basically my outstretched thumb again has to show the direction of the electric current. As you can see, my curling fingers are actually curling in this direction now. Earlier they were curling in this direction. Now they are curling in the opposite direction. So what happened to the direction of the magnetic field? It basically reversed. As in, when we reverse the direction of the current through the straight current carrying conductor, the direction of the magnetic field also is reversed. Alright, this is shown better using these diagrams. So as you can see here, the right hand thumb here shows the direction of the electric current. Current is up, and magnetic field above the wire is basically shown in this fashion, correct? So the curling fingers are showing the direction of the magnetic field, and what happens if we reverse the direction of the electric current? Now current is down. So again, the direction of the magnetic field are shown by the curled fingers themselves, but the direction is reversed now. Right? With this, we can understand that the direction of the magnetic field around the conductor reverses when that of the current is reversed. Alright, it's a very important concept, very simple but important. And this is called as Maxwell's thumb rule, Maxwell's right hand thumb rule, which is used to determine the direction of the magnetic field induced around a straight current carrying conductor. Alright. Now, as you look at this picture, so Oersted also conducted a series of experiments once he discovered this magnetic effect of electric current. What do we mean by magnetic effect of electric current? As we discussed till now, whenever there is a moving charge inside a conductor, that is, whenever we pass an electric current through a conductor, there is a magnetic field that is induced around the conductor, and whenever we switch off the current, what happens? This magnetic field disappears, right? This is magnetic effect of electric current. Once Oersted discovered this effect, he also conducted a series of experiments to just understand the direction and how differently a magnetic field is induced around different shapes of conductors, right? So now, as you can see here in the picture, what we have done is we have wound the copper wire into a coil. So even here you see that when iron filings are spread across, they are absolutely normal when there is no current. Current is flowing through the copper wire. As in, when we switch on the current, what do you see? You see that the iron filings are arranging themselves in the direction of the magnetic field, or in the pattern of the magnetic field lines that is created around this conductor, right? So notice the arrangement of the iron filings. What is happening? It is basically the same kind of direction application that you see. Applying the same Maxwell's right hand thumb rule, we can actually determine the direction of the electric current even through this circular loop. Okay, it is nothing, just the straight. We had a straight wire and we used the Maxwell's thumb rule using the straight wire, but now the straight wire is wound into a circular coil. Again, this loop, around this loop as well, we can use the same Maxwell's right hand thumb rule and determine the direction of the magnetic field around it. Alright. Now, in order to understand this better, let's look at one of the very simple experiment and see that there is definitely a magnetic field induced around inside this coil, around this coil. I'm sorry, not inside, around this coil. And as in, when we reverse the direction of the electric current, what happens to it? How differently does it behave? Let's look at this experiment and come back and discuss more. So as you can see here, it's a very simple setup that we have here to demonstrate the magnetic effect of electric current. So what is magnetic effect of electric current? It's very simple. Whenever there is a current passing through a conductor, there is a magnetic field that is induced around the conductor, right? So here it is not a straight conductor carrying current. We have wound this copper wire in the form of a coil, right? So for a coil, how do we actually know if there is a magnetic field that is induced? So basically, using clock face rule, what we are trying to do here is to show you if, say for example, there is a permanent magnet here, right? So this face of the magnet is north pole magnet. Okay, north pole of the magnet, and this is the south pole of the magnet. Then if I pass the current through the coil in an anti-clockwise direction, that phase of the coil basically will have a repulsion, right? Why? Because the same north pole is induced on that phase of the coil because of the magnetic effect of electric current. As you can see here, they are repelling each other. So when I actually reverse the direction of the electric current, what should happen? The same phase should attract it, right? So there should be attraction and repulsion on either faces of the coil, correct? Let's see what happens. So as you can see, I have reversed the direction of the coil, and you see there is a clear force of attraction between these two magnets. One is the electromagnet that I am holding, that is a simple copper wire which is wound in the form of a coil around which there is a magnetic field that is induced because of the magnetic effect of the electric current, and the other one is the permanent magnet. As you can see, both of them are attracted to each other. Hence, this face of the coil is basically the south pole, or basically these two faces of the magnets are having two unlike poles which are getting attracted to each other. Now, what did you see? It was a fun experiment, and I'm sure I've been always fascinated looking at the experiments that involves magnet and electric current. You saw that the circular coil basically behaved as a magnet, right? There was a magnet that was hanging from the wooden support that we had kept there. So you saw that the coil basically repelled or attracted at one given point of time, once at a time, right? So why did that happen? So whatever the north pole or the south pole of the magnet that we were using, the permanent magnet that we were using, basically one of the poles should be a north pole and another should be a south pole, right? So once we started the flow of the electric current through the coil, of course the direction of the electric current created a certain kind of magnetic field around that coil. So this basically shows you it is given by clock-phased rule. What do we say? It is given by clock-phased rule. So when the direction of the current is in this direction, so Maxwell's right-hand thumb rule says that the direction of the magnetic field is in the curling direction, fingers in the direction of curling fingers, correct? So it should be in this manner, right? So this induces either north pole or south pole on one of the faces of the coil. So when it was brought closer to north pole of the permanent magnet, it should repel. So that's what you saw in the experiment, right? When we reverse the direction of the electric current, what was induced? There was south pole induced, and hence there was attraction over there, correct? It's a fascinating thing to look at. So now that we have better understanding of magnetic effect of electric current and also magnetic field induced due to a current carrying straight conductor and also the loop, we have something called as a solenoid. Now what is the solenoid? Now once this magnetic effect of electric current was discovered, it was basically a breakthrough, all right? So using this particular effect, we discovered that we can build magnets, right? Until then, we only thought, we as in humans, we only thought we get magnets naturally by O-ring, right? But using this particular effect of electric current, we can easily build magnets of whatever the strength that we require and use it in our daily lives or any other purposes of experiments that need to be conducted, right? So the first step towards that was the making of a solenoid. Solenoid is a very simple arrangement that you see it on the screen there. As you can see, it is nothing but a copper wire, a conducting wire which is wound around a cylinder in a helical manner. Helical manner as in it goes around it very closely we wind this particular given copper wire around a given cylinder, and it is actually connected to a battery or a voltage source through which we make the current flow through the conductor. Once the electric current is passed through this wire or the solenoid, what we call here, what happens? There is a magnetic field induced around this solenoid, and this solenoid, this arrangement basically behaves exactly as a bar magnet. Alright, so how do we define solenoid? A coil of many circular turns of insulated copper wire wrapped closely in the shape of a cylinder is called as a solenoid. It's a 1-marker question. If it's a 2-marker question, you may have to draw the representative diagram and show what is a solenoid as well, and also please draw the magnetic field lines around it. As you can see here, North Pole is here and South Pole is here, and if you keep a bar magnet in order to compare it with the solenoid, you can see that the magnetic fields are exactly the same. Very similar looking, correct? So instead of using a bar magnet, which is quite bulky, and there are so many things that we cannot do using a bar magnet, that can be done using a solenoid, correct? Now this effect, magnetic effect of electric current, basically disappears, as in the magnetic field disappears when we stop passing the electric current through the wire, correct? So as you can imagine right now, this particular effect is temporary in nature. That is, if we are trying to build an electromagnet, how do we build an electromagnet? A solenoid is an electromagnet. Why is it called as an electromagnet? Because we are creating a magnetic field by the passing of electric current, and this effect is also magnetic effect of electric current, right? So this particular arrangement is called as an electromagnet, and it's a temporary magnet. Why is it temporary? Because as and when we stop passing the electric current, that is, as and when the electric charges stop moving, they do not actually create any kind of magnetic field around them, and hence the magnetic field basically disappears, or magnetism disappears from that particular copper wire, right? So they are called as temporary magnets, and this effect is only temporary. Why? How is it temporary, or how can it be brought back? Just by passing the electric current. All right. So why are electromagnets better? Let's look at it. Before that, let's understand a few points. The two ends of the solenoid behave as two poles of the bar magnet, correct? And the field lines inside the solenoid are parallel to one another. So with this, what do we understand? If you take a bar magnet, and this is North Pole and this is South Pole, and this is the pattern of the magnetic field around it, and you see that the magnetic field lines inside the magnet also are very parallel to each other, right? So this solenoid basically behaves exactly as a bar magnet, and also through the coil, through the cylindrical coil, you see that the magnetic field lines are properly straight and parallel to each other. With this, what do we understand? At every given point inside the solenoid, the magnetic field is very uniform. And also, as we have already mentioned, it is a temporary magnet. It's not a permanent magnet. Alright. Now, when we compare a permanent magnet and an electromagnet, these are the few things that you have to remember, and these are the few things which are also advantages when it comes to electromagnet. First thing is that we can reverse the poles, as in when the poles are induced, when the magnetic field is induced around a given solenoid, if we reverse the direction of the electric current, what happens? The poles also get induced reversely, right? Basically, the direction of the magnetic field is also reversed, correct? This is what we learned using Maxwell's thumb rule. So what is happening there? By reversing the direction of electric current, it's a very simple thing to do, right? All we need to do is switch a commutator. A commutator is a key kind of a device which is used to reverse the direction of the electric current in a given circuit. So when I switch the direction of the electric current, what happens to the direction of the magnetic field? It is also reversed. Hence, the poles can also be reversed in a given electromagnet. But in a permanent magnet, we cannot do so. And in a permanent bar magnet, it induces a permanent magnetic field. Whereas here in the electromagnet, once we are done using the this magnet, we can definitely switch off the current, and hence the magnetic field also disappears. So there are no hassles as to how to store this particular arrangement, right? It is just a coil and a cylinder, and there is a source of current that we have to worry about. If at all, there are many circumstances where we need a large magnet or a very strong magnetic field that needs to be used in certain kind of industrial applications. So we cannot actually rely on permanent magnets which is a hassle to be stored in a certain manner, right? Because they are magnet and there is a very strong magnetic field around them, they have to be stored in a certain place where there are no magnetic substances around them, correct? So there is no hassle of storing them, because storing the electromagnets, because they are temporary magnets and the magnetic field induced in them is also temporary. Another thing is, strength of the permanent magnet cannot be varied, because a permanent magnet is a bar magnet and it is what it is. The strength of the bar magnet depends on the nature of it and how it is made, and few other factors. But once the bar magnet is made, once the given magnet has a particular amount of magnetic field strength, it cannot be varied. Whereas in electromagnet, it is a very easy task to do. How do we do that? In an electromagnet, the strength of the magnetic field depends basically on the number of turns in the coil and also on the strength of the electric current that is flowing through the coil. So by increasing or decreasing these two factors, that is number of turns in the coil or a solenoid, and also the strength of the electric current that is passing through these coils, we can basically vary the amount of magnetic field strength as we require for a given purpose. Another thing is, bar magnet does not need any kind of electric current to have a magnetic effect, right? Have a magnetic field around it. Whereas electromagnets definitely need an electric current source. Basically, we need to create a potential difference at the ends, right? So this requires a lot of electric current supply there. Alright. Now, as we discussed already, electromagnets have huge number of applications in our daily lives. So if at all there is a purpose, or there is a particular place where large magnets are required to be used, electromagnets are used in these places. One such very common usage of electromagnet is waste segregation. If at all there is a whole pile of garbage and sharp things like iron nails or safety pins, or as you can see it in the picture, it's a junkyard where all the iron pieces or scraps need to be separated from other stuff, other materials. So what can we use? We cannot actually get a giant magnet, natural magnet, and go on holding it, right? So what these cranes use is an electromagnet. Electromagnet is basically again a huge coil of copper wire of many turns, and a strong electric current is passed through this, and hence it creates a huge or a very strengthy magnet, and hence there is a strong magnetic field that is created around this particular magnet. And once the purpose is done, once the separation is done, what do? They can switch off the electric current, or they can stop the flow of electric current, and it's done, right? Another important and a very practical application of this electromagnetism, that is, or electromagnet, is magnetic levitation. Now, what is this magnetic levitation? It is a concept where a particular object can be propelled and run by the strength and a magnetic force of repulsion and attraction using a few magnets. This particular application is made use in very famous magnetic levitation trains. Now, the principle or basic principle of magnetic levitation is that the vehicle can be suspended and propelled on a guidance track made with magnets. Now, what do these magnets do? They basically lift and propel the magnetic levitation trains or these vehicles, and they are pulling or pushing the train. So because there is a strong electromagnet that is acting around these tracks, it is basically lifting the train. That is one application. And another is that these magnetic levitation trains are run or stopped using another set of electromagnets based on magnetic force of attraction or repulsion. So this is a huge application. And what are the advantages of this magnetic levitation trains over the normal trains that we see? One thing is that they are amazingly fast, and another thing is that there are no steel railings that is required to run these vehicles, and hence a large amount of friction is reduced between the rails and the vehicle. If the vehicle is not running on any kind of physical rails at all, it just needs a guidance paths which are made up of these electromagnets, right? So in that case, what happens, a great amount of friction is reduced, and hence they achieve a very high speeds. So one thing is that they are way faster than the normal trains, and the kind of construction which goes into the steel railings, which goes into the railings that have to be laid from one point to another, is also another hassle which can be avoided in case of magnetic levitation trains. Alright, only thing is that we have to have very strengthy or very strong electromagnets in order to run these vehicles. Alright, now that we have understood a fair amount of things about how magnets work and what is magnetic field, what are the different effects of magnetic effects of electric current, let's try and answer a few practice questions. So this is a 1-marker question, and first one is that how is the strength of the magnetic field around a wire related to the strength of the electric current flowing in the wire? It's a very easy one. So magnetic field is denoted by B, and also please remember magnetic field has both direction and magnitude. It is a vector quantity, right? So how does the strength of the magnetic field induced around a current carrying conductor, in this case simply put wire, depends upon these two factors. Or what factors? The strength of the magnetic field B increases with increase in the electric current I, and vice versa. Alright, and also as we understood earlier, if this is the straight current carrying conductor and these are the magnetic field concentric circles that are induced, so at each point what happens, as and when we go further away from the current carrying conductor, the strength of the magnetic field B reduces. Alright, now what is meant by magnetic field? Magnetic field is the region around the magnet where the force of attraction or force of repulsion can be detected. Now when I say force of attraction or force of repulsion, I mean magnetic force of attraction and magnetic force of repulsion. Alright, so with this we come to today's end of today's session. I hope you all learned something new, and we also saw few fun experiments, and with this let's just quickly revise what we have, summarize what we have done today. We learned what do we mean by magnetism or magnetic field. We learned what are the different effects of magnetic current, how does it actually help us in daily life applications. We use electromagnets in many places. We will discuss further in our further sessions also. And we also looked at two of the very fun applications, that is waste segregation and also magnetic levitation trains. Right? With this, let's end today's session and let's meet up in the next session. Thank you.